Stellar Blade nails the most important part of an action game. It feels really great to play, and not unimportantly for a PlayStation 5 exclusive, it can look stunning as well. The setting really helps with this. We as Eve are part of a colony in space and get sent back to Earth to get rid of a so-called alien invasion that almost wiped out all the humans. So you will travel to destroyed cities, abandoned subways, large deserts, and even space stations with one mission: completely destroy this alien race. And I always love experiencing brand new IPs, and Stellar Blade delivers in setting up an interesting premise and making sure you care through great world building and mysteries that loom throughout the whole game. Now very early on you reach the last remaining human city, which is basically your hub in between missions, where you can also speak to other people and learn how they survive in this world filled with dangerous creatures. They obviously need your help with stuff as well, which in turn lets you learn more about the life on Earth, but also in this city called Zion, you find posters and other notes that reveal that not everything is as it seems. So I totally got more invested as time went on, but the biggest reason for this is that the game just becomes increasingly more fun the more you unlock for Eve. Maybe you already played the demo, which is basically the opening of the game, where Eve has her basic light attacks and heavy attacks, and you already have access to some active abilities. Well, almost every time you finish a major story mission, you unlock something new. With the highlight for me being the simple double jump, because it gives you way more freedom in how you traverse the world, it lets you reach new areas, and also helps you in some of the platforming puzzles. But also early on you get a gun with different ammo types, so you can hit the enemies from afar in combat and also succeed in the ranged only levels. Like the Changeling sub, you namely sometimes are unable to use your sword and have to navigate dark labs with only your gun, so you feel way less powerful, and this really helps with the more horror nature of these missions. Like, I enjoyed these main quests quite a lot. And there's also a whole new set of active abilities you unlock throughout the story to spice up the fights even more. It's really awesome how every combat feature is connected. Instead of having to wait for ability cooldowns, you build up energy for one set of abilities by performing perfect dodges, while another set of abilities requires you to parry a lot. Like, I do this as well. In some games I dodge way more often and never really parry, or the other way around, but Stellar Blade has you use all of these defensive moves if you want to unleash all the powerful attacks. And luckily the game has one of the most satisfying parry systems I have experienced. It doesn't only feel great to block an attack at the right time thanks to the great visual and audio cues. No, a really smart thing the game does is give the bosses really big glowing weapons that leave a very clear trail behind, so you can way more easily anticipate when the attack is about to strike you, so when you have to use the block button to parry the attack. There's also no stamina, so you can just parry as many incoming attacks as you want, so even if you normally don't parry, Stellar Blade will make you a fan, and there's also gear and skills that can make the parry and dodge windows bigger. And we will of course have tips and tricks for the combat and other parts of the game, so subscribe to not miss it, and leave a like if you like the review so far. Now I want to keep the positivity up, because the majority of the time I really enjoyed Stellar Blade, which is mostly because the core of the game is just really solid. I think it's really worth mentioning, and if you played the demo you know this as well, but hitting enemies feels really amazing in this game, and there are also quite some awesome boss fights that all feel completely different. Eve and the other characters are very likable, and some of the side content is surprisingly fun, taking you to many new locations in the open world you otherwise would have missed. I say open world, but it's actually open zones. Like, you can really compare the structure to Star Wars Jedi Survivor, where you have planets that are super linear with some set piece moments that Stellar Blade to a certain degree has as well, which really helps make this feel like the epic adventure it should be. But in between those missions you have two open zones with enemies walking around and quite some treasures and side quests to find. It was hard to not get distracted in these two deserts, because most side missions just have one or two simple objectives, so can be completed pretty fast. So I found myself constantly chasing the rush of new rewards and mission completion screens. And again, these quests can lead to some pretty fun locations and situations as well. But after 2 of these open zones, again both in the desert, and 3 large linear levels, the game just suddenly throws almost everything I liked out the window for an insane boss rush with fights straight out of From Software games. I would say that for 80% of the game there's a nice balance between still being challenging without being frustrating, but if I defeat almost every big boss in 2 or 3 tries and then suddenly am stuck at an encounter for 2 hours, something feels off. I obviously don't want to show these fights for spoiler reasons, but just suddenly expect these bosses to do many combos that instantly kill you, so you almost always die the first time you see them. These bosses are suddenly way faster, and after defeating one, a few minutes later another one is just waiting for you, and then another one, without any exploration or set piece moments in between that made me enjoy the majority of the game. Now it's just about hitting your head against a brick wall for hours until it breaks. And I wanted to see what happened when I switched from the normal difficulty to the story mode, but then these encounters, with one in particular, were still insanely hard for me, let alone someone who just wants to enjoy the main narrative. Like, that should be the purpose of this mode, but I don't think that people without a lot of gaming experience can beat this game. And there are other things that hold this game back, like the economy is basically non-existent. You namely get a ton of money throughout the game, so you can always buy the cheap consumables and ammo, but there's nothing that really requires a large sum of cash. So I basically never really spent any money, and then suddenly had to spend almost all my money on items to survive the final boss fights. And there are many other resources as well that you've been stacking up throughout the game by doing side content and finding every chest in every corner, but it all kinda turns out to be for nothing. Like, I had a ton of these resources left over near the end, with nothing meaningful to spend it on. There's namely the infamous no return screen at a point which feels about midway through the story, and it is way more impactful than in other games. Because after going on that mission, you can namely not do any of the side content again, and there's no way to return to a save before that point. I currently have a save before the final boss, and all I can do is repeat that final boss. I did quite a lot of side content already, but I did not finish everything. But now, if I want to finish those missions, I can only do that by starting a brand new save game and then reaching that point in the story again, which will easily take me 10 hours. Like, my main save is basically useless now until they release New Game Plus, I guess, but then I still have to go through the game again to reach those side missions. Like, this decision is wild for a single player game with just one save slot per playthrough, and the no return screen, and you will see it when you get there, is just not clear enough that this is the impact of what is about to happen. Like, there are little annoyances where you sometimes get one shot during puzzles or platforming sections, so then you have to redo them, or the fact that you can't immediately replay bosses but have to walk a short distance, watch a small part of the cutscene again each time you die. Like, those things did not really stop me from enjoying the game. Just like the many mini games that you have to do for the story or to open chests. Like, the game is rather short, so they did not bother me that much. It's more that the game just did not stick the landing for me and feels rather rushed near the end. I finished it in 22 hours while spending 7 hours on side content, and again like 3 hours on the final bosses. And that is totally shorter than I anticipated. I still think that people are going to love this game, and having the right expectations will help, because despite the issues, I still enjoyed and still enjoy my time with it, even though I now have to replay a big part of the story. I have to touch on the music as well. That is just amazing throughout, with more relaxed environment tunes throughout the game and very upbeat tracks during the many boss encounters. Even after doing these fights over and over, the songs never got annoying. I saw footage from the fidelity and performance modes in this video, and while not as stunning, the game still looks great and runs at 60 in the performance mode. I did not run into any bugs or glitches. Like, this game really comes close to the PlayStation Studios production quality that we grew accustomed to, even though it's made outside of Sony's walls. I think my overall takeaway though is that I wish this game would not feel as much as a part 1 as it does. They are clearly holding back some things for a potential future title, which makes the package that we get here smaller than I anticipated, and also than what the developers said before launch. Now, it's of course a good thing that you want more of something, and that's totally the case here, but still, by the end of Stellar Blade, I was less satisfied than I had hoped. Of course, if you have questions, drop them in the comments down below. Subscribe for tips and tricks. We already got some fun videos lined up. We will be streaming the game as well, so of course like this video, that would really help me out. And if one of the Stellar Blade videos is already up, you can watch it by clicking on the screen. I'll speak to you very soon. Goodbye.